I will now pass over to Ellie and she'll introduce you to each of the speakers.
Thank you, Hannah. We first want to introduce James Ellis, and he's going to talk a bit about Creative Alliance and what they've done during lockdown.
I think a lot of people know me, but my name is James Ellis. I'm from Creative Alliance. I'm the business development manager, but also a development coach. So I'd just do a bit of an introduction about Creative Alliance. We're a specialist training provider and social enterprise that specialise in creative digital marketing, training and apprenticeships. We try to help people get in and get on in the creative sector. We want to sort of encourage and kind of really celebrate people's creativity, people's ambitions and people's need to get into what can be considered sometimes a very difficult sector. One of the reasons we wanted to sort of ask Ellie and Hannah to put on this event was about celebrating what's been a really, really tough time for the UK and for the UK's creative sector. We've seen, as we work with lots of different employers to help them train young people, to help them train any people really, in the creative sector, there is lots of different stories about people really doing something different or innovating in a different way to try and help make their enterprises or businesses work, and we really wanted to celebrate that. So if you have any interest in apprenticeships, if you have any interest in training, or you just want to chat about the creative and marketing sector, then please get in touch with Creative Alliance on info@creativealliance.org.uk. I will stick on the chat and stuff all of our kind of Twitter links and Facebook links and things like that, because we do have lots of different events going on all the time for employers and for learners alike. I'm going to hand back to Ellie. I don't want to sort of keep your time too long, but really enjoy these speakers, and you know, I hope you sort of celebrate it as much as we do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the first of our three main speakers, who is Laura, who's the CEO of 7 Arts, and she's going to tell us a bit about what she and the team have been doing during lockdown. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Ellie. I'm just going to share my screen.
Of course, we can't run with our eyes out.
Sorry, that's the back. That's the end of it. Let's go back to the beginning. From the beginning. There we go. Apologies. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for asking me to come along and have a chat with you all. Just to tell you a bit about 7 Arts. So 7 Arts is a cultural charity. We've been established since 2018. We're based in Worcester. We cover the whole county. We've got a portfolio that includes being the lead on the Worcestershire Music Education Hub. So that provides all music tuition and ensembles and things like that in schools. So teaching and learning for music. We have an arts development programme as well, which is supported by Worcestershire County Council, and we deliver arts projects across the county in various settings and in lots of ways. And we have a festivals programme, which is a fairly new string to our bow, which was as a result of a Cultural Development Fund bid to the DCMS, and we are one of 5 projects in the country. So we run a festivals programme. So obviously our first initial response to COVID-19 was like everybody else, I think, in terms of the shock and the impact and the kind of complete unknown. So our first response was to actually make sure that our staff and our providers and everyone was okay. And we had to be creative in our own organisation and work out different ways of working, as I'm sure lots of you have also done. So we wanted not to react initially, we wanted to be very proactive and actually look at how we were going to operate as an organisation, how we were going to respond, and how we were going to make sure that everybody had what they needed in order to enable us to do that and to be able to support the sector that we work in. So we had a different response for each of the areas that we work in. With music, we looked at online teaching like everyone else. We wanted to explore how we would work online. What we didn't want to do was to pretend that we're really good at it, because actually in our business we weren't actively doing much online. But we did some trials. So we offered some trials online teaching to our parents, carers and schools. And we did some taster sessions in the summer as well. And we worked in 4 blocks. So we worked in the autumn term offering direct one-to-one teaching to our students, and to make sure that we kind of kept that music at the heart of what they were doing, and to support them emotionally, but also to support what was happening at the time. And obviously all our schools were closed, so we had to be quite resourceful in working out how we would do that. So that was our kind of initial response to our teaching, and we offered all of it free. We wanted to take away as many barriers as possible to providing that teaching and learning. So we removed the financial barrier, and we offered it free and said, bear with us. Our teaching staff rose to the occasion, and lots of them had never taught online before. So we made sure that we were kind of removing those barriers and making sure people had access. So we then also decided we had a little bit of money to give out, and let's see what we could do with giving some grants out to our practitioners to ensure that we kind of kept our musicians in work, that we were trying to make sure that we looked after them and made sure that they had some good projects to work on, and to be really positive as well, to try and be positive in a situation that was obviously a not very positive one at the time. So we had some grants, and we had some very small grants which we offered out to 9 projects and musicians and music organisations across the county, and we tried to focus them on being upbeat and responding to how we could all keep making music. And I'm sure everybody's seen an awful lot of the inspiring projects online with choirs and orchestras that we've all been subject to over this period, which have been absolutely amazing. So we wanted to focus and make sure that we carried on with the music curriculum and made sure that our children were still engaged, our students were still engaged, and at the same time enabled our practitioners to do a bit of creative work, so creating some projects. And then we provided some resources for schools, parents and carers that we wanted to put onto our website. So we provided a lot of resources that we researched a lot of what people were doing out there, and sort of tried to create some nice things for children, parents, carers, everyone to do during this time when they weren't able to access music at school. So in terms of the arts, we had decided straight away that we would try and support the sector and find out what they needed. So we had lots of online meetings. We've got a monthly network of for artists and arts organisations to come along and meet. We've provided some get-togethers. We've provided some kind of subgroups to look at what we could do going forward. So to create new work, for example, to work with schools once they were up and running, and to also sort of look at other things we could do. So maybe arts and health. So we provided a platform for the community to communicate, really. I think that was one of the most important things throughout this whole process, was how we communicated, and that, you know, you'll hear from the others how brilliant creative responses that they've had, but we wanted to provide those platforms for people to share and to come together and to, you know, to just be supported as well. So we also had some other grants, Creative Connections. We weren't very massively imaginative with our titles. I think we spent a while discussing them, but we came up with, well, it says what it does on the tin. So we wanted to, for these grants, we had 20 projects and grants that we funded for people to enjoy. It was a response to COVID, but it was actually what we wanted was a positive response to what might be able to be achieved going forward. So we wanted to provide a digital gallery, if you like. And that went on to we also started looking at training and online training and CPD, and that continues at the moment. So we're looking at how we can support the sector throughout Worcestershire and make sure that we champion their work and make sure that they're doing great things and that everybody knows about it. So during the time as well, we have a young poet laureate, so Ellie, who has been amazing. We appointed them, we carried on. We normally do a big celebration of their work and we have a nice event, but we couldn't do that, so we did it online instead. And we appointed a young poet laureate, and she has been superb. She's been along to staff meetings, she's devised a poem for the board, she's just responded to our installation, which I'll come on to in a bit, Luke Jerram's work down at Worcester Racecourse. So she has been amazing, and we've also partnered up with our bid in Worcester to create an outdoor gallery, which has just been launched on Friday. So again, we managed to commission some artists and get some work out there. So we're hoping to increase that and get more empty spaces animated with artworks as we go on through this time. So festivals, well, our festivals completely stopped, as you can imagine, so we weren't able to do any physical festivals, unfortunately. We had to stop the programme, but again, we were really keen to keep the staff engaged. We've got 2 apprentices and an intern, and we wanted them to be feeling that they were supported and had some work to do and to plan for the future. So we did some Facebook Live, and we had a conversation between one of our artists, Emily Hett, who had been commissioned for our next festival, and our festival's director, David Edmonds, and that went really well, and we were able to at least showcase her work online, if not physically, as we'd like to have done. We then set up a symposium, which was called Tomorrow Today, and that was about a series of online discussions about how the sector was coping, the outdoor arts sector, how we were going to get back online and how we were going to get offline, sorry, and how we were going to get back to bringing work to people and engaging audiences following this pandemic. Really great event, attended by lots of people nationally, internationally. We're part of something called Without Walls and the Outdoor Arts Association, so we get some nice support from them, but we also get access to some really fantastic work, and we're hoping that we'll be able to bring all of that back next year and the year after and the year after. So it was great to do that and to have some national and international input from lots of people and lots of brilliant speakers. You can see some of those YouTube videos if you want to have a look at some of those discussions. So we thought, well, what can we do actually, what can we do physically for the next sort of to replace the festival that we would have done this October with our team. So we were very, very lucky to have the opportunity to commission and have the In Memoriam piece by Luke Jerram. If you haven't seen it, it is on Worcester Racecourse up until the 18th. But I believe it's going elsewhere as well. You can probably find other places if you're not based around our area. But it's his response to COVID-19. It's been amazing. It's quite poignant when you go into it. It's all made up of bed sheets, and it has a fantastic atmosphere when you go inside. We had hoped to do some physical performances, but that was before the latest changes to the regulations and the guidelines from the government. So we have now just had 3 commissions. So we've done a dance commission. Ellie has done some work as Young Poet Laureate, and we've got a piece by a cellist. So we will put those on live streaming. So we've tried to be create as much of a legacy from some of the work that we've been producing to enable people to access it online, but with the very, very strong commitment to bringing our work back physically as soon as we possibly can with everybody. So looking forward, we've got more commissions coming up. So we have a Light Night festival. Our first one was last January. We were lucky enough to be able to do that before we went into lockdown. So we were really pleased that we'd managed to showcase what we could do to the great people in Worcester and Worcestershire and everywhere else. So we are going ahead with the Light Night next year. It will be possibly January, February or March, depending on what happens and how we respond over the next few weeks, few months. But we will be bringing it back. It is very projection based. So we're looking at 4 major commissions, and we have commissioned the work already so that we know that we'll be able to offer that even if we can't offer it for whatever reason, physically in the next 3 to 6 months, we will have those commissions ready. So we're really committed to that, and actually making sure we can commission people to do the work. So we've commissioned 4 artists. They're not revealed yet, but they will be soon, and some fantastic light works that will be projected onto various buildings. We've taken that choice because it enables us to engage audiences as well, but not in a way that's going to compromise safety, so they can view it over a period of 2 or 3 nights rather than having one big event in a city centre. So we're trying to help the city as well to develop their high streets, to regenerate their high streets, but in a way that's going to be safe and comfortable for people to walk around and be together. So we're hoping that that's going to work. Fingers crossed, we should be able to deliver that soon. Our travelling music box, during lockdown, we also bought a bus. We can see the illustrations on the screen, but we undertook a crowdfunding campaign, which was supported through the Arts Council as well. So they match funded us to do that as a music hub. And we've just bought a van which we're hoping to have kitted out and branded and on the road in the spring. The original concept behind that was about creating a digital kind of technical composing. I'm not very technical with the music technology that's currently out there, but and I don't have that experience, so hence we've employed a graduate to do that for us from the Conservatoire, to offer a different experience to schools mostly, but we also wanted to bring it to public spaces to enable people to see what's possible. So developing your own composition, playing with technology and music. So that was the original concept, and we're sticking to that, but we're also going to be using it hopefully for more teaching and learning and for more performance type work that again is able to be outdoors, able to transfer around the region without us being beholden to actually having a venue. So we've been doing that, and we're just about to start launching that. So that should be quite exciting for us in the spring. We've actually bought the bus, so we have got it on site now, which is quite exciting, but we need to get it all out. So watch this space for that. And the other thing I would say is we've been, as an organisation, we've been part of a programme called Change Creation, which has been all about transforming our business plan going forward, how we were responding to things anyway before the pandemic came in, and what we wanted for our organisation, because we're a relatively new charity, and how we wanted to go forward and what our purpose is and all of that. So we're now looking at iterative is the new word, and I think that's the word that's been kind of flagged up by all of our funders and everywhere else about how we have to be responsive, how we've got to change. Nothing is kind of set in stone. And I think for creatives and for people that are in the creative industries, that can be quite an exciting challenge as well as a daunting one. And I think it's important for us to be using what we're good at in terms of how we respond to anything that's in crisis, and we're very good at that in our sector. So we're just working on that, and we're working on a responsive business plan going forward that will keep us focused on the future and focused on what happens next, rather than thinking about and obviously managing our teams and making sure they have jobs and supporting them to do the work that they love doing, and not become I think was it welders and shop assistants and all of that. So I think we want to wave the flag for our brilliant creative sector. So as part of that as well, I've become part of a lot of partnership working, a lot of being represented on different boards and towns boards, and looking at how we can embed culture in regeneration and the use of space particularly. As part of our festivals programme, we're also responsible for the arches in Worcester, which are railway arches and being done up for creative spaces, and we're continuing with that programme, which is also funded through the DCMS. So we're continuing to make those spaces available. They'll obviously be slightly different perhaps than we thought, but we're certainly out there doing it and making those spaces hopefully for the future. So I wanted to finish with a poet, a film of a poet, Casey Bailey, who was involved in our symposium and was our artist in residence, if you like, for our symposium. He wrote a poem in response to the event. His performance reflects on the cultural sector through the topics and themes which arose through those discussions and presentations over the 3 days in August this year. Casey's a writer, performer and educator. He's born and raised in Lascelles in Birmingham, and he's named as one of the 30 most influential under 30-year-olds in Birmingham by Birmingham Live in 2018. He's performed internationally. He studied at our university where he was awarded an honorary fellowship. So we were really, really keen to support our local talents with this. So I'll play it for you, and then that's me done, but I'll play it for you. I hope you enjoy it, and please do feel free to ask any questions. Thanks.
This poem has been written over the 3 days. I finished it about 15 minutes ago and I've been tweaking it. And yeah, I think it goes like this. Let's be clear. We're gathered here in this virtual space because we love physical events and want them to take place. But of course, we can't run with our eyes held shut. And it's important that we always keep the audience safe. So many people are worried. I'm sure we all get it. Most people have seen nothing like this. Let's not forget it. We aren't just suffering the impact of COVID. We're also living through a fear pandemic. People need to be together, thrive on socialization. But after lockdown, this needs reimagination. We have to be mindful of the different implications. Think of crowd density and event duration. We all know that events are enriching for our soul. Until we have them back, we might feel that we aren't whole. So to keep risk down, think of the acronym ERIC. Eliminate, reduce, isolate, control. The principles are the same, just more preparedness, more pages on risk assessments, enhanced awareness. Like, do people really know what 2 meters is? And do people really understand the need for this? There'll be more time planning and a longer wait. But if you're unsure, then be sure to communicate. Ask all the questions that you have and make no apology. You should be able to lean on your local authority. Safety is at the forefront. But remember why we do this. If people don't enjoy it, then the whole thing's useless. We have to keep the fun safe, not have the fun replaced. We don't want the people at the cinema to miss the movies. We have to think about it all, join it up at the seams. This is made by planning. This isn't made in dreams. It's important to have great relationships between your production, technical and safety teams. Be brave. It's easy for me to say for sure, but I am sure you can do it. It is what you're here for. It's time to innovate, open up new doors. Don't just try to replicate the things that you did before. Don't water down events and settle for second rate. Come with new ideas. Maybe find a new space. Just remember, right now, you are somebody's hero, and it's important and it's impossible to ever reduce the risk to zero. The key is to create moments, though times are disconcerting, because we know at times art can be life-affirming. Plant a memory in the mind that is truly worth preserving at a time where we don't just have a need for art. We deserve it. Think of access. Put art where people can reach. Remove barriers. You can make a stage out of a street. If you're just starting out, don't prepare a big feast. Start small. You can grow. There's no need to compete. It's a time for us to fight the fear by innovating. See festivals reimagined, high streets reanimated. Work together, continuing to work in the community, elevate their ideas and create some opportunities. We will need to take a pause, design some new targets, work in different spaces, connect with different artists. Let's stand up, dry our eyes, see ourselves revitalized, like Worcester's Victorian railway arches. Look to festivals of the future with keen consideration of their role in rebuilding and community engagement. They're as important for placemaking as legislation, so we must keep them at the center of regeneration. We've been through some dark times, but they won't last forever. Ask me when the art will die, I'd have to tell you never. Whether indoor or outdoor, whenever or wherever, we can make it through this storm if we stand in it together. Thank you. This poem has been written over the 3 days. I finished it about...
So that's me done. So thank you very much for listening, and I shall stop sharing now, so and hopefully talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Sam Morris, who is a British cow artist and entrepreneur. and she's going to tell you a bit about what she's been doing during lockdown. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Ellie. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my studio here in Tewkesbury in Gloucestershire. I've always wanted to be an artist. Ever since I was 5 years old, I would be colouring in, and it would be my safe space to go. But as I grew up and went through school, the choice of being an artist was a difficult one. It was difficult because there wasn't an obvious career path to actually being an artist. And what happened to me is that I conformed. I got what's probably recognised as a proper job, and I left art for 20 odd years. And it was only when I painted my friend's favourite cow. My friend is a farmer's daughter. She's a cattle photographer, and she had a favourite cow called Vanessa. And I painted Vanessa as a surprise for her birthday. And on that painting, I fell smack bang in love with painting, and I got so cross with myself that I'd left it for so long that I promised myself I would do something about it. I would be that artist I always wanted to be. Now, at the time, I was working full-time in London, so I was travelling from here in Gloucestershire, commuting to London every day, and that commute was a killer. It was 2 hours there, 2 hours back, but I used that commute to hatch a plan, to write a business plan, to research competition, to create my website, all of that good stuff that a business needs. And I remember the day, sat in front of my chief exec as I explained I wanted to hand my notice in to be a cow artist. She, of course, was incredulous, and her jaw hit the floor, and I will never forget that moment. But it made me even more determined. As I heard the words come out of my mouth and back in my ears, it kind of reaffirmed that dream, that goal I was working towards. And even though I didn't grow up wanting to be a cow artist specifically, I knew I wanted to be an artist. And it was that emotional moment of giving my friend a painting that was special to her, was the moment that I understood how important it was to be really specific, really niche as an artist, to really understand your audience. And my friend, Lucinda, she took me on lots of photography gigs. So as she was taking photographs of cows, I was learning what farmers loved about their cows. And my business started as a hyper-realistic portrait service to farmers. Farmers would typically show their cows at, country shows and agricultural shows, and those that were proud of their cows would very often treat themselves to a portrait of the cow. And that's how my business started, little by little. But one day I played around with the paints in the studio, and the bright colours came and the cartoon characters came, and commercially my work just took off. And suddenly I was able to take the leap into being a full-time artist. And it's really funny. I'll tell you this, but don't tell anybody else. I was worried it wouldn't work. And so my backup plan was to buy a year's worth of toothpaste and a year's worth of coffee. So at least I'd have clean teeth and a drink. It's funny, isn't it, when you're faced with trying to look at how you might prepare for the future when it's unknown, you make these little decisions that give you just a tiny bit of comfort. And that tiny bit of comfort helps you move forward, take that next step. And that's exactly the situation we're in at the moment and have been in since lockdown. When lockdown happened here in Gloucestershire and in my cow art world, it stopped me in my tracks, because at the time I was travelling across the UK and sometimes abroad to deliver workshops, teaching people how to paint a cow or even how to paint their dog, two very popular paint workshops, and I would travel all the way across the UK, as far as the Highlands, as south as Southampton, and across to Wales and across to the northeast. I was traveling around and I was inspiring people to pick up the paintbrush, and I was just so doing it with a theme of painting a cow mostly. And these were good fun days, really interactive, and it was people would come to learn how to do the thing, and then they'd walk home with the cow. But I'd get lots of messages afterwards to say, actually, it was an important day because it was time out. I've invested in myself in taking time out. I took myself away and displaced myself from my obligations and responsibilities. And I jumped into the flow of painting and I lost the hours. I feel like I've looked after my well-being today. And I started to realize how important creativity was for well-being. Of course, I knew this because I knew it from my own perspective, but I was only starting to realize how you could open that realization, that door of realization for other people too. So when lockdown happened and the whole calendar, the whole itinerary for everybody just stopped in its tracks, I threw away my calendar and I immediately thought, I need to feel useful in this situation. And at the moment, if my options are I can hunker down in the studio and just paint and just look after myself, and suddenly that kind of felt quite isolating and it didn't feel very giving. And I think when we're faced with these situations, you've got to look at your own values as a person and what values help you, when you practice them, look after your own well-being. And I think one of my values is to be of use or to be of service. So I started to think about how could I help people, because there were people, key workers on the front line, protecting us, saving us, looking after us. And I desperately wanted to contribute in some way, shape or form. So it started off really simply with a vlog on my YouTube channel, and it's a playlist now, which is called the 21 Day Creative Challenge. And that's where I challenged everybody to be creative at the time. It was 21 days because at the time we thought it was a 3-week lockdown. And I thought, I'm just going to throw myself into this and put it out there. And I've been absolutely blown away with the responses that I've got and the people that took part and the thank you cards that have been sent in. And even now, people are watching the 21 Day Challenge and dipping into different things as and when they need. The 21 days covered everything from painting to sketching to photography to being confident on camera to making stop motion videos to being able to talk about yourself as an artist. I was trying to think of all the different elements that make up the world of being a creative and then just share it with people. In amongst all of that, I thought, wouldn't it be fabulous to put a live paint session on? And within that, I came up with the idea that we would all paint a sheep. And we'd put a rainbow in the back of the painting so people could put it in their windows. And to date, over 65,000 people have watched that video. And I've lost count how many people have sent me photos of their painted sheep. In fact, one little girl sent it into ITV this morning, and she was chosen to be part of the mural for the Nightingale Hospital. So that piece of art went on not only to engage somebody in the making of it, but also brighten the days and the environment of everybody who worked at the Nightingale Hospital as well. And sometimes when you start a creative project, you don't know where it's going to go. And very often, and I think it's probably because of the way we've been trained as a society, we're trained to think of things as goals that we're working towards. when actually goals are useful, but what's really important is the creative habit to do something consistently, no matter how small. And if you start those small things, the ripples that happen from there are just so exciting. And when you're here at the beginning, that's absolutely indescribable, because you don't know where that work is going to go. You don't know how it's going to impact people, and nor should you worry. You should just do it. You should make that habit, make that creative habit part of your everyday life if possible. And that's what I started to really look at. I got fascinated with how, you know, we get up in the morning and we've got a habit to brush our teeth, and when we go to bed at night we've got a habit to brush our teeth as well. So how come we lose these other habits, these good habits that really serve us, and it's almost like they're jettisoned to the bottom of our to-do list because other responsibilities and obligations come ahead of that. So I went on a bit of a mission, a bit of a personal mission, to figure out how to just keep encouraging people to be creative. And from there, I launched a 6-week program called Inspired to Paint. And we're 3 cohorts into that now. The 3rd cohort just started last Sunday, and there's about 90 people in there who every 6 weeks go through a process of trying to improve their art, but probably more importantly, spend time on the brush, spend time on their creativity and invest in themselves. And in doing that, they kind of raise their energy, raise their vibration, which has a positive impact on other people around them. Now, in running my business, I've had to learn all sorts of different skills. I say had to, I've really enjoyed learning all of those different skills. From, all right, some of the things are not that exciting, like bookkeeping and keeping on top of admin and emails and things like that. But some of them I've really loved, like making videos. I set up a YouTube channel a few years ago, and I was absolutely petrified of being on camera, of talking like this, of almost being in front of so many people. I would very often hide behind my art. And so I thought I'd challenge myself and make 1 vlog a week. This is a couple of years ago now, and slowly I built my YouTube channel. So I've learned a lot about how to tell a story on video. I've learned how to edit. I've learned all the technical actions of making and producing and publishing something that somebody can watch. And I've been fascinated with how you go from being really scared about doing something to actually being really creative in how you tell a story. Now, I just did that to support my business, and that's kind of been chugging along in the background as I've been painting the cows and traveling around teaching other people how to paint. And when lockdown happened, I realized that a lot of my friends who themselves are in business, entrepreneurs, self-employed, sole traders, they hit a brick wall of panic, and it was because their business was very much based on opening the doors and inviting people into their locations. So friends that have a restaurant, a floristry school, I've been working with personal trainers and our local theatres and also local schools. All of those people need people to come into their environment to share their skills, their goods, their services, their products, and suddenly they couldn't do that. And so what I ended up doing was going around all of my friends, helping them get online. So that transpired in different guises for each different business. So Jill, who has a restaurant in town called Tilly's, she launched Feed Me Club. Feed Me Club became a 3-meal delivery service targeted originally for people who were vulnerable and unable to get out because of isolating, and she turned her restaurant into a key worker service, and we got her online with a website, and we told stories on video, and so that kind of suited that business. And then some schools got in touch, and we hatched a plan to deliver pop-up art workshops outside, because we've had a beautiful summer, thank goodness. So I would go along to the schools, and if there was a local village green, I would set up, say, 10 easels around the village green, paints in the middle, and we'd socially distance all of these easels, and the kids would travel, come out of school, come onto the green, and we'd paint plein air, we'd paint outside. And of course, they all painted cows as well. But we suddenly realised that we could be flexible in how and where we did this creativity. It doesn't have to be in the classroom. And it was because of the creative thinking of the schools that we were able to exercise and come up with those solutions in just a different way for people to sort of really grab a hold of. And then, of course, schools have a problem coming up that they have a recruitment period for next year where they need to show their school. They need to have an open day without opening the doors. And it's a ridiculous situation, but these ridiculous situations are actually brilliant for creative people. Because the thing is, when you're creative, and if you're told to go away and create anything you want to create, your brief is too wide, you're overwhelmed with options and choices and decisions, and in fact, you get fatigued by making those decisions. Yet when you're given limited parameters in which to create, suddenly your creativity is turned up a notch, and you really over deliver on the possible solutions. So if ever you're thinking that something is too broad, too overwhelming, restrict yourself, give yourself a tighter, more focused brief, and you'll surprise yourself with your eventual outcome. So this week recently, I've been filming a playgroup, a infant school and a junior school, and I've been learning all about the world of children and their educational journey from being so tiny to being on the edge of senior school and everything that happens in between. And we've been interviewing the teachers about why they're teachers. I, of course, recognise that they need to talk about their wonderful Ofsted reports and their beautiful facilities and all of that. But as a storyteller, whether I'm an artist or a video maker, doesn't matter. As a storyteller, I want to know why they're a teacher. Why are they turning up every day to teach children? Because if we share that story creatively, that school will be remembered and seen for who and what they really, really are each and every day. And that has been fascinating to look at. Now, as well as that, I have been looking at how to support other businesses like personal trainers who are supporting people to stay fit and healthy during this time as well. Now, for me, personal training it's a tricky situation, if I'm honest, because if I could get away with it, I would spend 7, 8, 9, 10, all right, maybe 13, 14 hours sat at an easel each day, just listening to music, drinking coffee, painting, and just getting lost in that world. And even though that is good for my well-being, it needs to be mixed up and balanced with getting outside into the fresh air, moving my body, raising my energy, and looking after myself that way. Because looking after ourselves, it takes a lot of different things, not just one thing. It's almost like collecting breadcrumbs, and your pile of breadcrumbs are those little things that just make your day a great day, and painting for me is one of them. In fact, that's probably a few breadcrumbs for me. But I also know getting out, walking up a hill is really good for my energy, and it actually makes my paintings better as well. So working with those personal trainers, I have learned about how to incorporate those healthy habits into my creative life as well. So my service to them has been helping them get online, to record their instructional videos, to create their YouTube channels, things like that. So I've been of service that way. They've been of service back to help me really investigate how we incorporate that into our creative, healthy life that we want to live every day. And I would say, without that lockdown, without this pandemic, without COVID, without this limitation on our life, I would have never had any of these experiences that I've just described to you. And I think that's the power of a situation. Sometimes we can feel really reactive to a situation, and that very often that's the first thing that comes up for us, a reaction. But if you can just hold that reaction for a wee while and think about how you might do things differently and how you might like to make this an opportunity for you, I think suddenly the world flips for you, and suddenly it becomes really exciting, and it fuels you with this energy that you have for your business that, one, you didn't bank on, two, you weren't scheduling it in at all, three, you've got to work so fast because the ideas, it's like turning on the inspiration switch, they come thick and fast. And they can exhaust you because you're working so hard, because you don't want to lose inspiration. But in turn, it fuels you as well. And being refueled by creativity as a creative is super important. And it's addictive for me as an individual, and it's inspiring for other people. And I think the best way I can sum this up is thinking about painting. And I've got a brush here. Now, I think it's amazing that this piece of wood with short stubbly hairs on the top is dipped into some liquid, and that liquid is suspended in pigment, in binder and filler, and then we daub it on a canvas and we create this wonderful art, which then in turn has a reaction and evokes all sorts of wonderful feelings in people. That is the power of a creative, to take a stick and to change the world in that way. And I think it's our responsibility as a creative to make sure that we're doing that as often as we can. And that's all from me for the moment. Thanks ever so much, Ellie. Back over to you.
And last but not least, we've got Namiwa, who is an international jazz singer and recording artist. So I could hand over to you. Thank you.
Hi, you're right. Thanks, guys. It's nice to be here, and I hope that you guys are enjoying everything you're hearing so far. I'm definitely inspired. So yeah, I am an international songwriter and recording artist. I've been writing music for about 5 years now professionally, but always kind of as a young child, just like wanted to be a creative. I wanted to be an actress actually, and be Patrick's daughter on EastEnders. That was definitely gonna be my destiny. But yeah, things changed, and I kind of just explored songwriting and expressing myself and how I feel, and just trying to process the world around me through music. And I studied applied performance at Birmingham School of Acting, so I have a BA degree in applied performance, and that's kind of where I first started mixing social political issues within the community and working with groups, so working with young people, LGBT groups, adults with learning disabilities, and sometimes working with refugee and asylum seekers. to like just create work in the community, and that was either with them or it was about what they had to say or about their story. And then my role kind of became still creative, but then it was more about me like kind of allowing other people to access creativity within them. So it kind of just evolved and has kept evolving into so many different things. And yeah, I mean, the lockdown situation, as an independent artist, I had like shows booked in Europe. I was literally just about to go and do some international work for the first time in like places like Vienna and in Germany. But obviously that was all cancelled. So my initial response was just a bit like, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit nervous. I was a bit anxious about the whole situation and processing information. And weirdly enough, just before lockdown had actually happened, I was working for Beat Freaks and Google on a program called Beat Internet Citizens, and we was delivering a fake news project about digital citizenship. And then there was this big wave of like news and information and everything moving online. So it was kind of, I'd almost in a weird way prepped myself for it, but still kind of felt a bit lost in the first instance about what to do. And yeah, like had some time to sit and reflect and really plan and really connect with my art again. And then went on a journey of just like applying for different funds and different applications to stay creative, to sustain what I'm doing. Obviously recently we've had loads of like warnings to the arts industry from the government to basically say we need to jump ship and go into a different vocation, which I mean in some aspects I can see why that's been said as a practical step to making the world a somewhat normal place again. But then in the other sense, I don't agree with it at all, and I kind of think it's demoralizing for the creative community and for people who are artists and people who survive off expressing themselves in that way. So yeah, I've just kind of been fortunate in the sense that some of the applications I've put in, I've been successful. And I guess if there's anything to kind of take from what I'm saying about the funding applications and my kind of route into creating, is that I guess it was all a long process and everything kind of happened naturally. Nothing's really felt too forced. So I guess whether it's like a moment that you've got now because of the pandemic or because of like not being at school or wanting to change industry, or if you want to get into an apprenticeship and that's something that you're just about to start doing, I think it's kind of like enjoying the space that you're in and really just connecting with your spirit and connecting with what makes you happy and what makes you feel good, and that's naturally what leads you on to things. Because I've been asking, like, I've just not long set up a company called Girl Grind UK, and that's set up to support Black and Asian women from minority communities on their personal and professional grind. And as we were setting up the company, we was doing like interviews with BAME professionals, and one of the questions I was asking was about like, is there a spiritual connection with business or with creative arts and entrepreneurship? Like, is spirituality playing a part in that? And a lot of people think that there is and other people don't. I'm not sure what you guys think, but I personally do. And I think that sometimes that essence of just being content with yourself and getting your head right and really checking in with how you feel is the best thing for either your business or for your creativity. Because when you're happy and when you feel confident in what you're saying and doing, you know, things naturally come to you through like law of attraction, which is one of my beliefs personally. And then also like naturally people want to be around you and your ideas grow and opportunities just open up to you. So yeah, that's what I think. Still not quite used to talking so long by myself. It's like, yeah. What else is there to discuss? Oh yeah, I feel like one of the things that changed from what I usually do, so my usual setup, I'd play with my live band, and then I think, you know, as the lockdown happened, I automatically jumped on online gigs and was being paid for some of those shows and wasn't being paid for other shows, and I kind of stopped because of that the thing I just said before about how it made me feel. It wasn't really enjoyable. I didn't really like it. So I only did a few of them, and I would do it again, but just in the right settings and circumstances. And then I think it was just interesting, like going from the same. So for example, one promoter might have possibly paid me like £500 before for a 20-minute set. But in the situation with the lockdown, they would approach me and there would be no conversation about money, because it was either me doing it digitally at home, or there was a big element of what they usually would have done that's not happening anymore. So it was just interesting, and it's interesting to see how like people respond, like how creative industries respond to it, how funds respond to it, and I guess then how the rest of the community and the rest of like freelancers, and whether people just pack up ship and leave, or whether people be resilient and stay. I'm just interested and open to the process moving forward, I guess. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask me about being a songwriter, being an artist, or what I'm doing in the next few weeks or months, then yeah, that's totally cool with me. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Namaiwa. And I also wanted to say a massive thank you to Laura and Sam as well for your talks. They were really lovely and really interesting, and it's really nice to hear what you've been up to, but also you all sounded really, really positive about what you've experienced during lockdown. You've managed to do as much of a positive spin on it as possible, which I think is quite difficult at the moment. I've got a question on the question and answer chat. It's for any of the speakers, so anyone feel free to answer. And it says, have you found you've reached different audience groups as a result of changing your delivery approach due to COVID? And how do you think your delivery may change in the future when things return to normal as a result of what you've learned this year? So is anyone specifically got a response there?
Yeah, oh, go on. I don't.
You carry on, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in a few ways. So definitely the digital switch up. So from performing with live audiences to then doing more digital performances. But with that, there was positives. So like when I was logging on Facebook lives, like I think I've probably got about 1,000 followers on my Facebook live, whereas like 10,000 people could have seen my video in an hour just by logging into their Facebook live. So there was massive pros to it, and there was a lot of like collaboration there. And then I did a gig with Birmingham Promoters that was in person as the restrictions went down, and it was slightly weird being socially distanced with everybody sat, no one was allowed to get up. I'm sure everyone was happy with table service, but like, you know, generally speaking, it was a bit odd. So yeah.
Completely understandable. Go ahead, Laura, for your experience.
Yeah, so we have obviously, yes, we've widened our reach massively being online. So certainly with the symposium, we reached a much wider audience and sort of raised our profile. So I think there are the benefits to that, you know, to that access to what you're doing is huge, isn't it? It's global now rather than local. I think where we've tried to make sure that people, so we've accessed our parents directly and our children directly, so we've increased our audiences for online ensembles and things like that, and I think that's been interesting to see how children are engaging with online performance as opposed to offline performance, and there's a confidence level there that, you know, more people are engaging, perhaps feeling more confident about that. So that's been really interesting. I think going forward, it's going to be about a blended model, so we talk a lot about that, and certainly in schools there's an attitude that some are taking us in face-to-face, some are wanting to deliver online, some are wanting a mix of the two. So I think that's the way forward for everyone really at the moment. So but yeah, we all want to get back out there, I think, and perform, I'm sure, and, you know, get some work out there, but I think we're going to have to do both, and you know, that's an opportunity as well that we perhaps wouldn't have had. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, that makes perfect sense, Laura. I completely agree with you. It's provided us with opportunities we wouldn't necessarily have had otherwise, definitely. Did you have anything to add to that, Sam, from your experience?
Well, it's certainly extended and broadened the reach, both from the cows' point of view. So there's cows that are heading off all in different parts of the world, and there's people in different parts of the world painting Highland Scottish cows, which I think's hilarious, you know, because people say, for example, in America, find these Highland hairy cows quite fascinating, almost like yaks to them, and they love the story of where the Highland cow comes from. So it's almost like we're sharing stories of our land to further shores, and I would have never expected to do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you all so much for responding to that question, and also in general for coming and speaking on the event and giving up your time today. And also a big thank you to everyone that's come along and watched as well, all of the attendees. I want to kind of finish off by saying we are hoping to send out an email this afternoon with a few questions to help us collect some much needed feedback from the event for our apprenticeships. So we'd be really appreciative if you could respond to those. That'd be lovely. And once again, I wanted to say thank you all so much, and that's that, and goodbye for the day. So thanks ever so much, everyone.
Bye.